what's shaking, everybody? The Longhorns are in the Elite Eight. Texas 83, Xavier 71. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Keenan Robinson. This is the Orangebloods Texas Football Channel. Do us a solid. Like this video. The Longhorns are into the Elite Eight. There's no reason not to be happy and click a few buttons or so. Subscribe to the channel. Get notifications. Link this out on social media. Do all of those things. One of the best performances in a NCAA tournament game that I think I'm going to go back, Keenan, and scour through all previous deep tournament runs to try to find like just how impressive this game was. Texas didn't just advance to the next round. They beat Xavier down, and they did it under some circumstances that going into the game, we wouldn't have guessed. Dylan Dessou out maybe for the rest of the tournament with a bone bruise. Maybe that's too much. Maybe he'll play on Sunday. I don't know. But like he played about a minute today and went out, and he's in a boot. It's hard to know what to expect. And it didn't slow Texas down at all. Just a phenomenal performance by Rodney Terry's troops.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought they would win that game, but I did not think they would win it in that fashion. I mean, just going away. And, I think most Texas fans were probably at certain points like, here comes the run. The run's about to happen. They're about to score 12 up, you know what I mean? And it just never happened for Xavier. They had one 9-2 run. And other than that, they kind of laid down. I mean, Texas really just broke them, I think, broke their spirits. They couldn't hit any shots from outside. They looked really tired to me, too. I think part of that is the fact that they were pushing the pace. Texas was. I mean, Xavier likes to do that, too, but they just looked exhausted out there. I was really surprised. A lot of the shots they were taking were short. Jack Nunge had a really tough night. I think he ended up maybe in double figures with points, but he was really inefficient. He was, let's see. Oh yeah, 6 for 19. Yeah. So he wasn't super efficient. And that was kind of the guy that, I was scared of for Texas was, can they stop this guy? Especially when you find out 5 minutes before the game that Dylan Dessou isn't playing, that he suffered an injury in practice yesterday. That's what I read, or that's what I heard. So yeah, to just jump in there without Dylan Dessou and just dominate, a really good team in Xavier is a super impressive performance, and Rodney Terry did a great job.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that you'd say about Rodney Terry, and we've had the discussion about Rodney Terry and the head coaching job about 1 billion times. When we had this show on Saturday, I guess, he's going to be the head coach when it's all said and done. And yet this team tonight overwhelmed Xavier with its defense. And it really is important to remember that Rodney Terry, before taking over as the head coach, was the defensive coordinator, if you will, of this team. As a matter of fact, he's been asked about what the differences are about, being the head coach versus what he was doing before. And he's like, oh, well, before I focused on the defense and now I kind of focus on everything. His fingerprints were on everything tonight. For all of the things that I've said about Rodney Terry and his head coaching record prior to taking over for Texas, following the Chris Beard thing, man, he's done a lot of things right since taking over, but you can see where he's molded this team into the image of the team he wants to see. I couldn't have been more impressed today with the circumstances of which, Dylan Dessou in the last 3 weeks has been this team's best player. To lose him at the beginning, I thought, uh-oh. Mm-hmm. Then you get Serge Jabari Rice, gets 2 fouls, and basically 30 seconds. So they have to manage the entire first half with either Serge Jabari Rice not on the floor, or he's on the floor and they've got to make sure he doesn't get a third foul. And it didn't come super easy for this Texas team tonight, and yet they just kept playing hard. They kept pushing the tempo. They just kept aggravating Xavier to the point that really by the middle point of the second half, all Xavier wanted to do, I think, was hurt Texas players.
Yeah.
I mean, Texas is kind of lucky to get out of this game without someone else getting hurt next to Dylan Dessou, because Xavier certainly tried to put somebody in the hospital a couple of times. Lots of standouts. I mean, to see Tyrese Hunter come, so much doubt about him in the middle of this season when he was going through a little bit of a slump. For him to score a game high 19, to get 18 from Carr, to get 16 from Rice, that's the recipe for this team to keep on winning. Their shot makers have to make shots. It was just pound for pound, minute for minute, second for second. Again, it's almost as good as I've ever seen a Texas team play in the tournament. I will say, though, it's not the best that we've seen this Texas team play. It was funny listening to Jim Nance in the second half talk about Texas, and he was like, well, they did beat Arkansas at one point, in an early scrimmage by 30. They beat Creighton. They beat the hell out of Gonzaga. They beat Kansas State on the road. They beat Kansas twice in a span of a week by 36 combined points. You start reading the stuff out, and you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, this team now is the best team in the country. And whether or not they finish the deal, it's really hard, right? They still have to win 3 more games. They still have to win a game on Sunday against Miami, and that team is playing lights out basketball. But when you think about the resume that Texas has put together, which now includes an absolute – the score is kind. The final score is kind to Xavier that it was only a 12-point margin of defeat. It could have easily have been 20 plus. I can't say enough positive things about the basketball that this team has consistently played when they've played good teams. And now we watch this team take the next step and see what they've got against Miami.
Yeah, no, I actually, with Anwar today, I said Miami's going to beat Houston. Or whenever this morning. I said Miami's going to beat Houston. I just saw a Miami team that has 2 amazing guards in Isaiah Wong and Nigel Pack, who's actually Nigel Pack transferred from Kansas State last year, if you'll remember that. So they have those 2 guys. They have Norchad Omier too, but it's hard. You'd be hard pressed to find a team that's playing better than those 2 teams right now, because Texas defense today, I mean, the final score, they gave up 71, but they couldn't get anything done. And I forget which guy kind of undercut Hunter was that Hunter that got undercut, I think, on the fast break. They were super frustrated, super upset. That defense is a nightmare to play against. And I think if I was playing against it, I'd probably be really upset too, because you're not getting any of the looks you think you're going to get. Any look you get is contested. They're playing denial in the post. It's hard to get the ball to their big even, who was played excellently by Christian Bishop. Did a great job today on him. And the whole team was kind of tasked with defending him in the paint, and they did an excellent job, and they were forcing him to turn it over. I mean, he was missing bunnies. Like, they got in his head, I think. I think mentally Texas just kind of broke Xavier.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think the key, well, you know what? Hold that thought. Let's knock out some super chat comments real quick before they stack up to the point where we'll never be able to get them all out of the way. Take that LA hat off, H-Town till I die. Longhorn Nation. I am not. I'm a Phillies fan, so I can't, in good faith, tell someone else to take their hat off, because if I had a hat on, it would be a Phillies, Sixers, Liverpool, something like that. So you guys leave Keenan alone about his Dodgers hat, even though he's not the only person that wants to let you know. It's late. People have been drinking.
Oh, yeah.
They do not want hey, guys, it's just like in Bull Durham. I think I said this maybe in one of the shows. You don't mess with a win streak.
Right.
This team's playing really well. If Keenan's wearing the Dodgers hat throughout the duration of this run of basketball that Texas is playing, don't start asking him to change things up because he's the good luck charm. It's funny, I saw Dustin McComas, one of our longtime great Orangebloods writers from over the years, covered this basketball team for a long time. I saw him tweet during the game, and I couldn't help but think, he covered a lot of questionable basketball. Keenan is covering what may turn out to be the best Texas team of all time. They're not quite there yet, but man, they're knocking on the door. You guys let him wear his hat. Let him wear it. Dude, you do not mess with a win streak. Trust me. Tom says, early thoughts on Texas Miami. They play a 4-guard, 1-forward lineup, so not a lot of size to this game. Tom, we'll get to that in a second. Matter of fact,
I'll bring that. I have some stuff to say. So
I'll bring that thought back up in a little bit. I wanted to just go back to what I thought was the critical moment of the game. Final 4 minutes of the first half, and Texas has really been controlling. It's cliche. If you're Xavier, you want to get the game below 10. Get it to single digits at halftime, and then you feel pretty good about, we didn't make a lot of shots. Nothing went right for us. We're only down, let's say, 9 or 10 at halftime. And in those final 4 minutes, Texas takes Serge Jabari Rice off the court because they don't want him to get the third foul. So Arterio Morris comes into the game, and he has a couple of bad possessions. Takes a bad shot, rushes a shot. Suddenly, Xavier's starting to creep a little bit. And then Texas knocks down a three, and then they get a really good defensive possession in the final 40 seconds. I guess, really, Xavier was holding the ball, hoping to get the last shot of the half, down 14.
Yeah.
And instead, Texas plays great defense, and Timmy Allen hits the most improbable off the wrong foot 3-point shot that obviously it was his one shining moment of the tournament, if you will.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's a 17-point game, and Texas was able to do that without Serge Jabari Rice on the floor, despite a couple of poor possessions, I thought. But they closed the half great, and it was never a game after that. Xavier played better in the second half. They had a hard time getting it below 15-ish points.
Yeah.
There was never a moment when Xavier really made this game close or something that you thought might get close. Just total domination by Texas. They did all of the little things right. I mentioned the guard play. Dylan DeSue doesn't play in this game, and Christian Bishop comes in and goes for 18 points and 9 rebounds and played just gutsy, defensive, hard-nosed ball. We can talk about Texas Miami. Now, I'll let you respond to any of that you want to, any other key points. We will certainly move ahead to talk about the Miami game on Sunday. But I had that little piece of the game in my head really the entire second half because Xavier never did make the game close. And it would have been a different game maybe if it had just been a 14-point lead at halftime, then it was a 7. It was almost as if the game ended with that Timmy Allen shot.
Yeah, they really just controlled the whole time. And, as many Texas fans, I'm sure, in the comments, everybody was kind of freaking out about, the officials are letting Xavier back in the game. There were some questionable calls for sure, but I'm not a guy who blames officiating for anything generally. Texas just went out there and just imposed their will on defense. Like, it was so hard to get an open shot at any point. I mean, it was just they were icing ball screens and just funneling guys to the corners and just not allowing good dribble penetration. They were forcing a lot of contested looks. And it was just really a great game plan from Rodney Terry to, try to take away certain things that Xavier had been doing all year. And, Xavier averaged, I think, 84 points a game this year, and they scored 71. And that's because Texas kind of took their foot off the gas last couple minutes. It could have easily been a 20-point game. It could have been a 25-point game. I mean, there was just no point where Xavier was really showing fight. And it was, you could tell in their players, they were super frustrated, crying when they were coming off the court. Like, that is a really hard team to beat and play. And they're super physical. And I think, I had a concern coming into the tournament was, depending on how these games are officiated, Texas and the Big 12 play such physically aggressive basketball that I figured a lot of them might get into foul trouble. And it's happened to an extent, but it's still an advantage for them because nobody is anticipating just getting bodied like that.
Yeah, and they had 5 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the second half. So at the time, I thought, boy, if Xavier's going to slowly creep back in this game, they may do it from the free throw line. And yet I'd have to go back and look. I think Texas finished with 8 fouls in the second half. So they play such hard defense. And even when the fouls started to rack up a little bit, they were still able for the final 16 minutes, I guess 15 minutes and change of that second half. They only committed, I think, 3 fouls the rest of the game.
No.
The way the NCAA, the officials in the tournament call it looser, and they let these teams play more than any other time of the year. There's no doubt about it. It's been, through the first 3 games of the tournament for Texas, it's been a major advantage. It's taking teams quite a while to just adjust to what it is that's being thrown in their face. I'm almost out of words for how impressive Texas was tonight.
Yeah,
quick, Keenan, because they watched Houston lose, and on the floor right before them, and they had to have known on the other side, earlier in the night that Alabama had lost.
Mm-hmm.
There's a world out there where that kind of thing maybe gets in a team's head. I'll go back to what we talked about last weekend. Getting to the Sweet 16 took all of the pressure off of Texas. And they played tonight like a team that had nothing to lose. It didn't matter that they didn't have Dylan Dessou. If they can do that against Miami, they will win that game. They're a better team than Miami, who I have a lot of respect for. It's ultimately going to come down to shot making, almost like every game in March does. But Miami will have to go through the same adjustment in the first 8 minutes of that game, the way every other team has so far. As long as Texas as long as Texas is going to get the guard play it got tonight from Hunter Carr and Rice, it's really hard to see Texas losing.
Yeah, and I also want to credit Arterio Morris too. He had a couple of rough possessions on offense, but he is an elite perimeter defender. He is he's big. He's like 6'4". He's built like a defensive end, and super quick laterally, smart on defense, doesn't foul too much. And I think it's a sign of a veteran team when you can play good defense without fouling. Yeah. There's like a few things that come along with being a veteran team and what it brings to you. And, one of them is making free throws late in the game. It's not turning the ball over late in the game, and it's not fouling all the time when you're playing good defense. And like you said, that first couple minutes where they committed how many fouls, 4 or 5, And then they figured out, okay, we got to regroup. And they kept themselves out of foul trouble in the second half after that first few minutes. I thought, Bishop might foul out. I thought, Carr had 3 fouls. Rice had 3 fouls. I was kind of worried for Texas, especially with their bigs. Since Dessou is out, they have a lot of depth at guard, but they don't have a lot of depth at big. You know what I mean? Like, they have Brock and they have Dylan Mitchell and they have Bishop, but Bishop is definitely the guy out of that group that you would need to fill in for Dessou, just because Brock has too, I guess, but he just has a certain skill set that's really important as a banging big, just bodying people. Jack Nunge is 4 or 5 inches taller than Christian Bishop, and Christian Bishop just bodied him the whole game. It's so impressive.
That dude will never forget the night. He'll go to sleep tonight wondering how he didn't score 40.
Yeah.
And if you watch the game, it was pretty obvious he got out physical. And not that guy's not physical, because I thought,
sure.
You couldn't come away from this game and say that Xavier wasn't physical. Because again, in the final 20 minutes of this game, that was almost as important to them as anything else. They were playing hard, as a kind way of describing. I thought there were a couple of cheap moments beyond the foul on Rice. I thought there were a few moments in the second half where I wondered whether the officials were going to let this thing get away from them. And you started to think to yourself, guys, don't do anything stupid. Don't get into a skirmish of any sort that might impact your eligibility. You know what I mean? That's what Xavier was doing. And it's kind of rare in these tournament games to have it break down like that. I was keeping my eye on the Princeton-Creighton game, and Princeton got down by, I think, 18 in the second half. Now, you wouldn't expect Princeton to go low class and start undercutting people, but
they keep them on their taxes or whatever.
But they kept playing, and you didn't see it from Houston. You know what I mean? There are a lot of games, Alabama, you don't often get to this stage of the tournament and see some of what we saw. Again, it speaks to the maturity of this team. We've said all season long, they got a bunch of low 20 to mid 20-year-old guys on this team, and they played like that tonight. They out-muscled, out-fought, out-defended, outshot, out-willed, and then in the end, they also out-matured a pretty mature Xavier team. This wasn't an Xavier team that itself didn't have experience, but this Texas team has the full thing, and it says a lot about Christian Bishop. He would be my player of the game tonight just because they might have known, Keenan, because the injury apparently occurred yesterday in practice, that Dylan might be limited, and who knows, beyond those first couple of minutes, might not play at all.
Yeah.
But it's been a while since Christian Bishop has been depended on to essentially be Dylan Dessou.
Yeah.
And he did it. He couldn't do it in a week from now. They didn't need it a week ago. They needed it tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And 8 from 12 from the field. Again, 9 rebounds, 18 points. It's just a total performance from a guy that if you had told me, if you and I were having a conversation earlier tonight and said, no Dylan Dessou, Christian Bishop's going to have a big game, we wouldn't have thought it impossible.
Sure.
But we wouldn't have certainly taken for granted that it was definitely going to happen. So just one big attaboy to the entire team. But
yeah,
there was anybody who stepped up more than anybody else given the circumstances of this game and who he had to defend, right?
Yeah.
He goes 18-9 and shoots 8 of 12 from the field, and that says nothing about how well he played on defense.
Yeah, absolutely. He was an absolute menace to the bigs because he would just try to slap the ball out, poke the ball out before they could get it high. before Nunji could get it high. But I also really quickly just want to say Tyrese Hunter was awesome in the second half as well. He came in, I think he had 13 or 14, something like that in the second half, or 12. And man, they are just getting big performances from different guys every game. That's why it's so hard to deal with them, because they run like 9 deep, and all these guys are like starter quality guys. They just wear teams out eventually. They just have so many dudes that have different diverse skill sets that all kind of fit together. And I think Rodney Terry should be really credited with figuring out the best way to use these rotations and lineups to maximize the results and to just really play guys off the floor on the other end, and it was just really, really impressive, man. Kind of like you said, I don't have like that many words even to say. It was just really impressive. And this team, could win a national championship. That's very much a thing that could happen. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying even they're the odds-on favorite to, which they might be at this point, but they can. They definitely have the talent to do it. I thought Alabama was the only team that would beat them straight up, and look what happened to them. Like, you called that, didn't you? You called San Diego State over Alabama?
I thought San Diego State could beat Alabama coming out of last weekend. I was really impressed by how well they played.
Yeah,
I can't say that I said that before the tournament. Real quick, let's begin to start wrapping this thing up. You still have a long night in front of you
I do.
from a riding standpoint. The good news is you can sleep in tomorrow.
Right.
We've got an Elite Eight. I'll go so far as to say I think the Miami game might be the Texas's toughest game left in the tournament.
I agree with you.
Because if they can get to Houston, they're going to have a massive home court advantage. The Blue Bloods are gone. The only real blue blood that is left is UConn, who Texas would play in the Final Four in the first round. They'll play the winner of Gonzaga or UConn if they can beat Miami. But that's going to be a home court advantage.
Yep.
Nothing's a sure thing. But if we look at, so you've got Creighton and San Diego State.
That's going to be fun. That's a clash of styles right there.
Creighton can shoot the freaking basketball. I felt so bad for Princeton because they played really well, certainly in the first. It's like a 40-38 game at one point in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And
Princeton plays good defense.
Princeton's playing their guts out, and Creighton they got some shot makers.
Yeah, Shireman.
You've got, let's see, you got Kansas State and Florida Atlantic tomorrow.
That's going to be fun too.
That is going to be a hell of a fun game.
Yeah.
Then you've got Miami and Texas, and then you've got Gonzaga and UConn.
These are all great matchups.
They are. For the reality of all the ones and most of the twos being gone.
Yeah.
These will be 4 great games, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Any gut feel for what you expect to see? If I held a gun to your head right now and said pick the Final Four, who's your 4 right now?
Okay, so in the Alabama bracket, it's
San Diego State and Creighton.
That's what I thought. Okay, so I would go Creighton in that one. I would go Kansas State. I would go UConn, and I would go Texas. Because my Final Four on my bracket had 3 of those teams. Alabama was in there too, but I had UConn, Kansas State, and Texas in the Final Four.
UConn's really playing some pretty great basketball.
They're scary. That's a terrifying
season. You almost hope, if you're Texas, you wouldn't mind Gonzaga.
Oh yeah,
doing. Texas already knows they can beat. Texas won't fear anybody, but if there was a team amongst those other 7 teams, all things being equal, you'd rather not play. I think you'd rather not play UConn. Although, Gonzaga is a really mature team. They've got a great player. This is going to be a fun weekend of basketball. And the bottom line is, all Texas and Texas fans are going to focus on is Texas. Wouldn't it be wild, though, if Texas and Kansas State played the national championship?
After splitting in the regular season, that would be really fun.
after Kansas State did what they did in the Moody's Center, which I still can't believe that happened. Think about the defense that we saw tonight. And imagine that Kansas State they scored 116, right?
Yeah, 116-103 was the final.
Texas got their revenge in going to Manhattan, and really, that was the only really good road win that Texas has under Rodney Terry. Obviously, they've been great on neutral site venues. They've won 6 straight in the last couple of weeks.
Right.
But a Texas-Kansas State final would be a hell of a lot of fun. It would be weird that the Big 12, having been really underwhelming for much of the tournament.
Yeah.
For those two teams it could happen. The thing is, we're at a point now. I don't think any of the teams in any of the 4 Elite 8 games are head and shoulders above the other teams they're playing.
I agree.
So, Florida Atlantic, for the Cinderella story that they are, they're good, man. They're good. They haven't won 30-plus games.
Yeah, 3 losses on the season.
I think Kansas State wins that game. And like you, I had Kansas State in the Final Four. But, boy, I'm out of words. Any final thoughts? We'll wrap this bad boy up, and we'll let everybody get on with their Friday night.
Yeah, just real quick, I want to say a couple things about Miami that I have observed. They kind of play like Penn State does. They have, like maybe one big on the floor, and then like your point guard, and then like 3 other guys who are probably considered guards or maybe wings. But I think that the game plan against Miami is going to be pretty similar to the one they had against Penn State. You just replace Jalen Pickett with Isaiah Wong or Nigel Pack, and then Norchad Omier, who's their power forward, is really good. But, I've thought this whole postseason, like, the size inside is going to kill them. We saw today what size inside does. Texas they just will themselves to win. There's just something about this team that I like. You just feel like they're like the team of destiny or something almost. Like they just, through the whole story of everything that's happened to them, to still be in this position. And you know what I love about watching them? They're always in the best mood on the court. They're so happy. They're high-fiving each other. They're dancing, like the camaraderie and the love is real. And I think that really means something in these tournament games because they trust each other to make the right play.
Yeah, no doubt about it. History will be on the line. Yeah. By the way, boy, how hot will a Final Four ticket be in Houston?
Oh, my God.
If Texas can beat Miami on Sunday.
Yeah.
Suddenly, and ticket providers, not that I'm going to like cape for the ticket providers right now, but given that it could be a Final Four that has Creighton or San Diego State, it really doesn't matter. They're both mid-majors, right?
Right.
Florida Atlantic, maybe.
Yeah.
A Gonzaga or a UConn, and both of those teams have really emerged over the last 20 years as blue bloods of basketball.
Yeah.
But you get Texas in the Final Four, and suddenly what might have been a very cool ticket market is going to be a very hot ticket market because if you're a Texas, look, I'm in the Houston area right now. There will be – everybody will want to be there. Everybody will taste – Texas fans are starting to taste how close they are now.
Mm-hmm.
And, that all the 1 seeds are gone. You don't have to worry about Brandon Miller anymore. Like, we don't have to have that conversation again, ever again.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that. Even Houston on paper looked like a team that, that's a coin flip game.
Yeah.
I look at Sunday, it's probably 60-40 Texas. Whereas I looked at Texas-Houston, it's kind of a 50-50 deal potentially.
Yeah.
So it's all in front of Texas. Guys, do us a solid. Do like Scott says, hit that like button, Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done it. It will be a lot of fun if on Sunday night, look, Keenan and I will do a show on, it'll be one way or the other, there will be a show.
Yeah.
It'll be a hell of a lot of fun, though, if on Sunday night we're doing a show because Texas is going to the freaking Final Four. Guys, live it up. Have a great rest of your Friday night. I'm going to take some medication and go to bed so that hopefully I sound and feel better. Keenan, get your work done so that you can get some rest as well. We got games to watch tomorrow as well.
Oh, yeah, we do.
A monster day on Orangebloods, by the way, this weekend. Texas baseball team tonight beats Texas Tech 6-2 in a really important opening conference game.
Yeah.
So you've got the rest of that weekend stuff, the rest of that series this weekend. Tomorrow there will be more recruits. I've lost count of the number of badass recruits that will be in town tomorrow. And then, of course, you've got basketball on Sunday. So if there's ever a time to join Orangebloods, if you're not already on it, do it now, because these are the best of – these are like the days that you remember for the rest of your life when the team that you support has a chance to not only win at a significant level, but maybe even do something truly historic. And on that note, for Keenan Womack and for myself and for Blake, who's staying up really late, he's used to it, though. We do this all the time on the football side of things. It just feels like it feels like a Texas Tech night game is what it feels like, or one of those Pac-12 games at night that I've gone through over the years. Guys, we'll see you on Sunday. You guys have a great weekend.